Hey everybody. First of all, I hope everybody's well, and I'm so sorry I haven't done I haven't done any live for about 2 or 3 days. It's been a long gap. I haven't had a gap this long for months and months. I am absolutely chocker busy at the moment, and I desperately wanted to get out some messages on communication. It was going to be communication week, so apologize. I'm going to make communication week next week because a lot of things I want to share with you I think are really important. I'm literally, I don't know if you can see this now, but we're currently living with our builders all around us at the moment. Wooden floors being put down. These are hardwood wooden floors, which have been put down a specific way, Scandinavian style. So you can see it's been a somewhat stressful week. I've literally been at the house here in the process because there's so many little decisions that have to be made at this stage when you're doing a house up, particularly when it's your own home. I wanted to just tackle very briefly this subject that's come up, and I felt compelled to actually do a live on it because it came up in a conversation this week with a gentleman who I know who has a couple of properties in London, and he's a landlord that's become a landlord by the very fact that he owned his property before and moved out of it. He and his wife got married and they rented their houses out, and so he's developed equity in his property and he rents them out. And I was saying to him, with that type of equity that you've got there, if you're sitting on $1 million plus of equity, then there is a large income that could be generated from that. And I just briefly explained that if you took some equity out, split the money up, spread that across a portfolio in a different part of the country, you could be looking at £5,000, £6,000, £7,000, £8,000 a month cash flow or more if you did it the right way. And during the conversation, although there was a part of him you could see that was, okay, this could be an opportunity here, there was another part of him that looked reserved. And I asked him, what are your thoughts? And he said, well, I just have an ethical question in my mind. And I said, well, so what's the challenge? And he said to me, I just have an ethical query in my mind about whether it's a good thing to be a landlord building a large portfolio. So I said, so what's the dilemma you've got? And he said, well, the dilemma I have is that if I buy property, then it automatically, and I build a portfolio, it puts stress on the rental market in terms of people maybe not being able to afford to rent, but also it would force the value of properties up. And then that makes them unaffordable for other people. So for me, being a landlord would cause that. So I have a challenge with that. Now, this is an interesting point because this question has come up a lot over the years, and I've been speaking in public now, as you know, in this subject for many, many years. And I said to him, okay, let's be clear on something. House prices in this country will continue to rise irrespective of what you or I do right now individually, on the basis that there is a population that's growing at 300,000 or 400,000 people a year. We are not building enough houses. There's been a massive housing shortage for probably 25, 30 years, and there will continue to be so. And in fact, if you look at the statistics, the government, and I think it was a couple of years ago, PricewaterhouseCoopers did a survey that showed that something like 50% of our population between 25 and 40 are going to be renting anyway. Dynamics of their careers, not necessarily wanting to get on the property ladder straight away, being transient, deciding where they want to live, etc. So I said to him, my personal perspective is this. As a landlord, I have a choice on what strategies I want to buy into. And he said, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, okay, let me give you an example. So our portfolio that we have built over the years started off as a buy-to-let portfolio. And that was professionals. And then I started looking at social housing. Then we started looking at asylum seekers, HMOs, non-HMO strategies, commercial to residential, etc. And I said, the beautiful thing about property is, as a landlord, you can choose the type of strategy you want to go into. If you want to talk about ethical and social consciousness, then if you look at the last 5, 6, 7 properties that we've bought, they've all been for asylum seekers. And we have a 7-year contract, a 10-year contract with the government. These are people that would be put in a shelter, that haven't got a home, that have been thrown out of their own country. We have special needs tenants who are basically people that are extremely vulnerable in the sense that, well, there's 2 types actually, special needs and vulnerable tenants. Special needs, physical challenges, emotional challenges, need carers in the houses. So we provide housing for that, also providing housing for people that have come off drugs and are being reintegrated into the community, or alcohol, and they're vulnerable in the sense that they have people come and keep an eye on them. So we provide bed space for that. And he was like, oh, right, okay. So I said, if you want to talk about that, then you can approach this however you want. These are people that desperately need homes, and there are not enough homes, and the government are crying out for landlords to come to the table with these properties. And then we talked about the international investment into this country. I said, look, if you look at some of the areas where the price has been forced up, primarily, you've got huge amounts of money coming in from previously, certainly India, but definitely Russia, China, even Brazil at one point. But we've had this massive influx of money, Hong Kong, Singapore, people wanting to buy properties here, especially in the south, and forcing those values up in some areas particularly high because they're buying them, they're not even doing anything with them, they're just keeping them as a second home. That's another factor as well. Plus, you've just got the natural organic growth. Properties double every 7 to 10 years approximately in this country. So we're not going to avoid that. There might be areas where it spikes, yes, because there's more interest in that area. But also you've got government intervention. They're coming in and putting grant money into those areas as well. And as I was explaining it, the end of the conversation, because he had to go, he had a phone call from his children, I think, to go help out. He actually looked at me and said, I think we need to talk. And it just shows you that sometimes if somebody watches something in the media, on the news, if they have a friend of theirs, I had the same challenge when I went to Denmark for the first time, and they said, what do you do? I said, I'm a professional landlord. I think we bought our first 30 or 40 properties by then. And they were like looking at me going, oh, landlords are bad people. And I said, why are they bad people? Now, the view was that landlords were greedy and they were buying properties purely for greed. This isn't everybody that was saying that, but a lot of people had this perception. A landlord buys a property, yes, to generate a business. They have spare money to buy the property, or they've raised money to build a portfolio. And they're also providing homes for people that can't buy a property. And they're also providing some security and long-term security for their kids in the future. In the same way somebody might build a restaurant chain or provide products and service, real estate is simply that. So if you've got ethical questions in your mind, if you've got people that challenging you on it, one of the first questions you could ask them is, what company do you work for? Because if you go and Google most companies, there's normally ethical dilemmas or negative statements or scam articles written about that particular company that they happen to be working for, whether it's a bank or a food chain supplier, whatever it is, restaurant company. And the reality is that you can't really design your life and make decisions based on other people's opinions of, number one, you, because that's just bullshit. You are who you are, and you've got great opportunities to be incredible in what you do. But also their opinions of a market conditions. It's like trading the stock market. Some people have a good view on it and a bad view on it. Eating certain types of food. Just because somebody wants to be a vegetarian doesn't mean to say that if they've got friends that are meat eaters, they suddenly disown their meat eater friends, or vice versa. It doesn't work that way. So I think you can't really compromise your values. If you've got to build a business and you want to build it for your family and you want to create security for them and you want to provide housing and homes for people that need it. I've got students that need properties. I've got asylum seekers that need properties. I've got working professionals that need properties. We have some really elderly people in our properties in South Wales, for example, who love living there. They can't afford to buy, and they don't want to go into a crappy home. So the beautiful thing about this is, whatever your business, you can make it ethical. And the great thing is that you can choose a strategy in that area. So as a property investor, make that decision. I try not to be put off by some of the media and the hype that is around this industry, because sadly there is a lot of negativity. And the reality is that if the world wasn't made up of people that own properties and people that own and rent properties, there'd be a lot more homeless people. And the great thing is you can choose, as we've done, is to take an area of that industry and look to provide homes for people who really need it. That's really important. I can see Brendan watching actually at the moment. If you're watching live, Brendan, I need to get you down to have a look at this area over here so we can try and sort out the projectors and the screens and the sounds. Anyway, big shout out to Brendan, by the way. If you're running any live events coming up soon, Brendan McCormick, who's just live on that, you can reach out to me and ask me for his details. Great AV guy. All right, folks, I'm going to sign off now, and I promise you I'll pick up on some more lives, but I thought I'd just tackle this subject head on.